started, when I first started putting things together, I said, I didn't know anything about it, this thing about being in a blended family. And you might not think this lesson's for you, but really, it's really for, just like, you teach teenagers, I'm going to teach you about getting married. Because the chances are you're going to get married. And the chances are a lot higher than what you think. You're going to be in the blended family. And nobody tells you what it's like. And there's two sides to it, there's not curse, but there's some really things you better get used to and other things that are pretty good. So some things that were missing in your first marriage are going to be in your second marriage. Things that were in your first marriage are not going to be in your second, good and bad. So you got to get your mind ready. And again, it all goes back. The reason I did with parenting because it goes back to parenting. You've got to, even if it's a blended family, you still have to be a godly husband and a father and a godly mother and a godly wife. You still got to do that. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. But there's some new things. New things that we're going to talk about. So let's start with a prayer. Father, as always, thank you so much for loving us. Thank you for the time now to be together. Help us, Father, now as we talk about being parents and mates we should be, especially in a unique situation, Father, where we sometimes have a second chance, a second start, another family, and another children, another mate. Help us. We still want to be godly. Help us to understand the unique situation that we're going to be. Thank you so much for loving us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. When I first heard the term blended family, I did not know what it meant. But I heard it many times, and I thought maybe it could be racial. I thought maybe it was ethnic. I really wasn't sure what it meant, maybe it was two guys and a girl, I don't know, or something like that. Then years later, I was in a blended family. And when you go through a divorce, or you lose a loved one, friends are going to ask you jokingly, well, when you get married? And they'll ask you, have you had a date yet? And that's just what your friends will ask you, and they don't mean any harm. They're maybe just trying to break the ice. I used to say this. I got 100 things I want to do now I'm single, and getting remarried is 101. I promise. That's the way you're going to think. Especially if you lose a loved one, that somebody acts in an accident or health reasons or something like that, and you're still 40, 50, 60 in that age, you still have fond affections for this one, and it might have happened overnight. And so the idea of ever having anybody else take their place, it is not on your mind. And if you've gone through a divorce, it leaves such a bad taste in your mouth that you don't want to take a chance on that. It's like the first time I ran a half marathon many years ago. I ran a half marathon. When I finished, I promise, I never felt so bad in my life. My eyebrows hurt. Everything hurt. I never knew you could feel that bad. I promise, I did it. And I can't. My goal was I'm going to run a marathon one day, so I got to start off by running. And I trained hard. I promise. I ate right, trained hard, did all the things that you can. It just took everything out of me. And I remember saying to the guys Sunday morning at church, one of my buddies, I said to him, buddy, there's no way I can run a marathon. I said, I'm dead after half. I can't. How do you go 13 more miles after half? I just said, I can't do it. So I started going the next week. I was going on, you try to have a year schedule of races. I crossed out all my half marathons. So I'm only running 5Ks. That's 3.1 miles. And I started doing that. But then, as time went on, I didn't make it so bad. Then I started saying, you know what? I'm not trying to. And I did. But if you would have asked me right when I went through that race, I don't even want to jog anymore. It hurt that bad. And that's how you feel. And for those who've gone through a divorce or you've lost a loved one in the audience, you know getting remarried is not that. The thought of dating, you think when you're young, when you date, you don't even know what you're doing, so you don't even know you're making fool yourself sometimes or being goofy. You kind of learn. But when you get honest, the rules for dating have changed. When you start dating now, they're changed. Girls call you, which is not bad. Girls pay the bills. And also, the second time, the girl doesn't need you as much as maybe your first wife, or your husband doesn't need you as much. it's just different kind of dating. And now you have a date. Your date brings two kids with them. And if you're old enough, the kids are going to be their grandkids. And I mean, it's just, and when you're going on a movie, you're going to go see The Little Mermaid because you got little kids with you. I mean, it's just like, and the fact that you sit here with the two kids, you can't even hold hands with your date. I mean, it's just, what is this? It's no fun. At first, you think it's no fun. So the rules are even changed. So the thought of dating, and here's the statistic, 50% of all marriages end in divorce. This is when people don't realize it. 60% of all second marriages, 70% of all third marriages. So people say this, oh, I'm not making the same mistake. I know what I want in a husband and a wife. And you do, I think you do know some good things. But what happens? It's most of the time the children. It's not you don't love the woman or love the man. You don't. I mean, you still do, I think, because that's what you're attracted to him. But it's just that, man, she brought three with her. You brought three. My three are better than your three. The reason we're leaving the second time is because your kids. If your kids were as good as mine, we'd still be together. I mean, it's like that. So it's a whole different atmosphere that you have to go through. But as days go on, months, weeks turn into months, years, you begin to get your life back in order. Physically, you're not crying, and you got your game together, and you're maybe back to working out and doing some things. Emotionally, you can talk about divorce, and you can talk about your children and all that, and you don't get all upset. And people can even talk to you about it now a little bit more. Financially, you're stable. At first, you don't know who you can't pay your bill, especially the woman. She's sometimes in hard time, and even she gets child support, it doesn't always come when it should. And so, but she's got all that organized, and she's been having to be the hardest job you can be as a single mother. You got to work and do all those kind of things, and single daddies too. And as time goes on, this is how you feel. You don't have to act on it, but you're going to start feeling something's missing. Remember what I said yesterday? If a dog's your best friend, you're in trouble. And if diamonds are your best friend girl, you're in trouble. Something's missing. You got a pet dog? You got your children, maybe. But something is. And that's companionship. Now where are you going to find it? Where are you going to find it? You have to have something. It's not an animal or something. And again, it's not because you stopped loving your mate who passed away. You still love them. But, most of the time, I've seen this and I've heard it, and you probably have too. Most mates who, on an accident, it's a different concept, but if someone who's going through health problems, but even if it's an accident, they might always say this ahead of time, hey, look, if something happens to me, you make sure you marry somebody that's good to bring up the kids. And good for you. I don't want you being by yourself. I'd say that to my wife, hey, if I die, find a guy. Find a guy, and, he won't be as nice as me. But find somebody, because I don't want my kids not to have somebody, Again, but make sure he's good. And so the idea that, now what happens sometimes is men do rush into it faster than women. That's because most men can't do anything for themselves. Now they're a little better. But in the old days, they couldn't cook, wash, do anything. And sometimes here's another statistic, the older you are single, like in your 60s and above, women want to get married quicker than men, and that's because they want to care for somebody. Their whole life they cared for someone. Now, if they've worked outside the home, as a lot of, not like the other generation before them, and mothers like my mother who was always home and stuff, and she did things, she needs a home. She needs somebody to care for her. She needs someone who comes home at 4 and has needs. So when they get that age, some mothers, ladies, they want a companion because they're in a hurry because they can't do the things they think they're good at. They find self-worth at. And then the man, he's looking for someone that can just help him because he can't do anything. But usually if you live a little longer now, before you get married, 29, in that age, you've learned a few things like that. Now, remember what I said for your marriage. The most important thing you can put in your marriage is you've got to grow in faith. You've got to grow in your faith. If you don't grow in your faith, it doesn't matter. You won't be a good husband or wife. And if you grow in your faith and then a disaster happens, whether it's a death of your mate or a divorce, you'll still stay faithful. You won't blame God. So now you've reached that point. You got your faith. And now, where do you find a godly man or woman? Where do you find him? Well, the best place that I've found from listening to people, and even myself, is you find them in a local church. It might be someone who you used to. I know people who husbands and wives, they took trips and everything together. And then when one of the mate dies and the other mate dies, they marry each other. I have a friend whose wife's name was Bobby. His wife's called Bobby. His wife died. His best friend's wife died. He got married. Guess what her name is? Bobby. What are the chances of that happening? But they knew each other. So sometimes it's somebody in church, somebody that you've known, and not always, but maybe it's somebody in church who introduces you to somebody. I had a friend, she lost her husband. He left her with 2 kids. And after a couple of years, she said, and she was in her 30s, she wanted to get, she said, I got to find me a man. For lots of reasons, but I need one for my 2 girls. So she started going, she told me the story. I said, I'm just going, she lived in Nashville. A lot of churches in Nashville. I'm just going to start going to meetings. So she started going to all these meetings. She went to one meeting at the Brentwood Church where I preached at, and she sat down, and she noticed a guy at the end of the aisle sitting by himself. So she asked one of her friends at church, hey, who's this guy at the end of the aisle? Oh, that's such and such. What was he? He's got married. He's never married before. She says, oh, this is Monday night. Tuesday, she moved down a little farther. And she said, in fact, she said, I came in through, I had to go like this. Excuse me. She could have come down that aisle and just sat down, but she said, I want to see the guy, excuse me. How you doing? And she sat there. She's a character. Third day, she moved a little closer. Then she talked to him after a while. How you doing? Where do you work? And, those kind of things. And then Friday, they sat beside each other. Then they dated, and in a couple of years, they were married. Because they were members. I always say, how'd y'all meet? And that's what. And then again, that's not always how it happens. But in a local church is a good place because they believe the same thing. I say this to teenagers. I say, when you go to church, come to services, I say, when you're teenagers, when it's all over, the amen, I said, if I was you, I'd start looking around. I said, that's not why you came, but I figured you might as well here. You might look around. Who's that girl? Who's that guy? I remember doing that, thinking, hey, who's that? And then, it may not be anything, but at least they have something in common. And just because I've met lots of people say, well, he's a Christian, she's a Christian. I know lots of Christians. I wouldn't have been happily married to her in that sense. We just everyday things, maybe even some beliefs, we weren't always on side. But we could still be friends. But, she wanted to live right next to her mother, and I don't think that's good. So you might meet them that way. Some people meet on dating lines, and I know a few have. But you got to be careful when you meet on a dating service. First, this doesn't sound right, but you can still do it. Only thing on the dating service, she looks a lot better on the dating service than she does in person. He's a lot better shape on the dating service than he is in person. And he makes a lot more money on the dating service than, all those things. I know that you kind of blow it up a little bit and make you look a little better. But I do know some couples that have met. And in fact, they always say this. They say, well, tell me where y'all met. And if they wait a while, they'll tell you it's a dating service. But where'd y'all meet? Online. It's kind of like, well, something's wrong. And I'm not saying something's wrong, but most time it doesn't work. And they met online, and they do good. Now, in my life, I was not going to get married. I wasn't going to get married. But my wife called. What happened was I was divorced about, say, maybe a year. A year before Laura was. So Laura was going through some trials, and someone said to her, why don't you call Paul Sheehan? Wasn't Paul Sheehan your favorite preacher? I was her favorite preacher when she was a teenager. She was baptized in one of my meetings. And so I was her favorite preacher. Why don't you call? Well, why? She said, well, he's going through a divorce, and he's probably a year ahead of you. Maybe he'd give you some advice. So she called me, sent me a text, and said, or email, and said, Paula, this is Laura. I don't know if you remember who I was, but do you have any advice? Can you help me? So, do I need my mic on? I do. So I sent you this book. It's at that time when I first got married. I have about 100 books. Here's Love, Courtship, and Marriage. Here's one called Get Ready, Get Set, I Do. Charlie Brackett, he's a friend of mine from Chattanooga. He wrote this book. And all of us, if you have any books, or even your children, you give them some books on how to get married, and those are good. But there was not any books out when I first got divorced on what's it like to get remarried. So Wilson Adams, who's a friend of mine who preaches, and his friend David Lampier, turn down just a little bit if you can. They wrote a book. Wilson, it goes chapter after, every chapter alternates. Wilson, his wife left him with 3 children. He preached. And he talks about what it was like and how he coped by himself and with the 3 kids. David Lampier is an elder in the church in Bowling Green. His wife died suddenly. And he was left by himself, some kids. And so it's one chapter about if you're through a divorce, or one if it's a tragic kind of a death. Hers was a health problem that she died of. And it was the only book. When Wilson gave it to me, I read it in one night. And I said, Wilson, that was me. You're like, you have your own parties where you make your own popcorn because you're all by yourself. And I said, I've done that. And just things like that. And then I sent it to Laura. I said, Laura, it's the best book I've ever read. I think it'll help you. So I sent her the book. And then I called her about a week later. Hey, I said, did you get my book? And she said, yeah. She said, what was it like? Well, she said, I got some questions and things like that. And then I remember saying to her again, I said, have you had any dates? Have you had any dates? I'm trying to see how she's overcoming. And she said, who wants to date somebody with 3 little kids under 7? I said, good point. She said, have you had any dates? I said, who wants to date a preacher? So then we started talking. Again, it was not from, it was really, she was helping me, and I was helping her. We talked every day for 5 months, every time. And what was funny, I didn't know as time went on, I'd call her we were 2 hours difference in time. I was living in Reno, Nevada, 2 different, I'd call her, say at 9 my time. I'd call her maybe 10 or 11 my time, it'd be 9 her, because her kids went to bed at 9. By the end of 3 and 4 months, after she had supper, the kids were saying, how come we got to go to bed so early? I didn't know she was getting off the bed so she could call me on the phone at 7, her time. It used to be 9. She couldn't wait, and I couldn't wait. So and that's how it was. And this is the truth. We fell in love without, in fact, I said to her, do you want me to, she said, do you want me to send you a picture? I said, yeah, I know who you are, but sure, that'd be fine with the kids. I said, do you want me to send a picture? Because I was older than her. She says, no, you don't have to send me a picture. And I didn't, and when I saw the picture of her, it was just like, I could remember, I could see her walking down there as a teenage girl, 16, about 20-something, 30 years before that. And so now it's time to meet her. It's time to meet her now. This might happen to you. You're going to meet a girl, and it may not be 5 months. Maybe we're going to have a date. It's the strangest feeling in the world. I can't tell you what it's like. I'd met her on the telephone. If you date like that, when we saw each other, I didn't know who she was because I'd never seen her face to face. And when we talked to each other, it was like talking to someone different. We had to turn our backs to each other. How you doing? Fine. Oh, we were relaxed. Now I turn around, I was nervous. And I tell you what, the first time I held her hand, I thought I sinned. I'm holding another lady's hand. 25 years, I only held one hand, one girl's hand. Now I'm holding this girl's hand. Or she's grabbing mine. I remember one time, that's what happened. She'd die if I told you this. We were on the date. Frank Walton and his wife, he's the preacher there, and Debbie, they were watching the kids, and we were at an outdoor mall in Huntsville, and we're walking here, and she'd taken the kids to a restaurant, and they're walking, and when we got close, she dropped my hand. She didn't want her kids seeing her holding hands. She just said, what are you doing? She goes, I don't know. I just don't want them to see. This is just weird. They've only seen me ever hold their daddy's hand or something. Honest. You better be ready. Now, what about, it's totally different. Do you remember the first time you held hands with your first wife, I'd say? Remember? Oh, man, this is pretty good. You remember holding her hand and just, it got chills. I mean, we used to go in Canada, we would go ice skating on Friday nights. And a lot of times when they played the music, you'd skate with somebody. You hold a girl's hand. You always wanted to hold your girlfriend, some girl you liked. We were like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, junior high. And I remember holding someone's hand. To me, that's my girlfriend for life. Do you remember those feelings? Now it's totally different when it's someone else's. It doesn't feel the same. When you first are married, you're not used to really holding lots of hands, so this is a special one. And then,
wait till you kiss. There's no electricity. And it's not because you haven't got it in your heart and in your mind and everything. It's just a strange feeling. You kiss them and it's like, first of all, it's awkward. Should I? I want to. Does he want me to? Does she want me to? Oh, does this mean we're forever and ever? Amen. If we kiss one time, honestly, when you're young, you kiss, and if it don't work out, I'll see you tomorrow. You know what I mean? But here you're you don't want to mess it up, and it's just what I'm trying to tell you is it's strange, and you have to. And so at the end of the week, I was at a weekend. I went there to see her. I said, we both said, I don't think it's going to, we said, I don't know if this is going to work. It's just, not that we didn't like each other. It was just strange. I got 3 little kids, sitting in my lap, just running around wearing me out, all those kind of things, and my kids aren't there because one's graduating from college. So, I mean, so I went back home. We talked in St. Louis. I told her, I said, Laura, I don't know. Luckily, I was preaching, so I had some meetings that summer in Alabama. Well, we talked some more, and we talked about what it was like. I said, why did you throw my hand down for? She goes, I wanted to hold it, but I was just nervous, She goes, and then when you kissed me one time, she says, I wasn't ready for it, And I said, I wonder if I did good. Was I any good? Did I lose it? If I lost it? I mean, that's what you think. It's not that you don't want to show affection. You're afraid you're not any good anymore, I lost it. I used to be good, but now, so you're afraid anything that you do like that might be, throw it down the drain. So you got to kind of just let's kind of talk. Just like when you first date, you got to talk about it. What are we going to do? How are we going to do? So I said, well, let's try it again. I'm going to hold a meeting in North Alabama, and I'll fly in to Nashville, and I'm renting a car, and so I'll meet you at a Cracker Barrel. So the kids she had a van and 3 kids, and I pulled up, and there she comes in a white van. Honestly, I did not know what was going to happen. She opened the door. The kids stayed in the car. She opened the door at the Cracker Barrel, and it's hard to tell it. We both kind of ran to each other. That was it. We knew we were going to get married. We didn't for about another year and a half or 2 years, but we just ran. And it was like this first time, who's that? This time, that's my girl. That's the girl I talked to on the phone who's so nice, and that's the guy. He's so nice. And now we ran, and we hugged each other, and where is it? And I'll show it to you later. But this is us right here now. And that's a little one with her mouth open. That's my little baby. That's our family now. That's our family now. But I'll tell you what. Your first marriage, that's it. Now you're ready to go, aren't you? Now I got to tell you the rest of the story. That's not even the beginning. That is the little bit. Now you got to be a blended family. Now you got to make it work. How are you going to do it? And that's why this lesson's for everybody. It's not just for someone who's been divorced, like me. It's not for someone who just lost a loved one, accidental, or through health, or even old age. Because it's for all of us. Because you could be in this situation. Nobody wishes it on anybody, but it could happen. Now, this is my girl. I love her. But you can't get married yet. When you first get dating, you can. It's just you two. That's all you got. Now, do I love her children? Do her children love me? Does she like my kids? Do my kids like her? And do my kids like her kids? Because if they don't, you cannot make it. You can't. You can't. And you got to think about that. Because I can't tell you how many guys get married a second time and they don't realize how important the children are. They really, I'll tell you as it goes on. If the children don't love you, you're not going to make it. Because, again, you got to see it. Her allegiance, number one, is she wants her kids. she's inviting me to help her with her kids. I'm inviting her to help me with my kids. And you both got to work together. And it's really, really hard. The younger they are, it's not so bad. Then they get teenagers and things like that. They suffer so much in a divorce. My littlest one, Hannah, she's in 10th grade now. When she came the first day, I didn't know this story. I didn't know. 10th grade, her daddy left when she was just little, just born and so forth. So she always was scared of men and not around men very much. And men would come over to her house or something like to fix something, or people from church would come. She stood behind Laura. I didn't know this story because she told me this story. And she said, when you came in and sat down on the couch, you kidded and you brought the kids something, a little present, and you were kidding with them and stuff. She says, after a few minutes, she said, do you remember what happened? And I said, no, let me see. Hannah was here, and she said, yeah, Hannah sat in your lap for all the time you were there. She had never done that before to anybody. And I just thought she was like a little kid, jump on your lap, She'd never sat in a man's lap. She liked me. I don't know what I did to make her, but she liked me, and she wasn't afraid of me. And so for me, that was Laura said, well, there's one check I'll give them a check for that one. What about the other kids? And that was a big plus. Now, for my kids, they thought she was great. And one of my children because she knew she was living with her mama. It was hard. I don't know. Was this another mama or what is So you don't know how it's all going to react, but you got to think about that. You can't get married if it doesn't work like that. If it doesn't work like that. Now at our wedding, it worked out for us. In our wedding, Tommy married us, Tommy Porch, and so me and Laura and the three Blake's. Laura's family was, the two girls, and what we did was I have one boy and two girls, and we all kind of stood with each other, and Blake spoke on behalf of his kids. He said something like, "Thank you for being nice to my mommy," and something like that. And Blake said to Laura, "Thank you for being nice to my daddy." And then the other kids said, "We're going to be good brothers and sisters." So they all said something, except for my little Hannah, the littlest one at that time. She couldn't say hers. She just got choked up. She's about 5 or something. But again, it's not playing. So my littlest one, who was about 15, who was kind of like the same, the one you paired them up, she came over and stood behind her and hugged her for the whole thing. So that was kind of like the families getting together. And then when we got ready to do, we poured this sand. Each of the kids came. First of all, one poured it in, my side, then her side, my side, her side, my side, her side. Then me and Laura poured it. We got it in our bedroom. It's a thing of sand, and they do it at weddings and stuff. But all of us put it together. And again, that's how it started. And the idea of same kind of rules, like, you need to date a long time. You need to date a long time when you're getting married a second time. And it's different. You don't have any kids when you first start off. You don't have the responsibilities, all those kind of things. And why is the divorce rate so high second and third time? I think it's because they don't even think about what it's going to be like, in a blended family. So that's how we got to our point. And now, that's the rest of the story, as I said. Now, again, if you ever have a chance to get this book, it's by Wilson Adams, and it's the best book. You can give it to anybody. You can order it, or you can just look and see where it's printed. But Wilson preaches now, and what it's like. This is the best book that I could recommend. It's the only one, that I can recommend to you. Now, so now I'm married. How am I going to be a good husband? Are you going to be a good wife? You've got 3 new children now. It's not like when you don't get a chance to learn how to raise them. You got 3 new ones, and you take Laura's. Well, she was younger than me, so my kids are old. She's never raised teenagers, and I've raised teenagers, and hers are little. I got to learn. The hardest thing for me at first was I had to learn all new cartoons. There's no more Mickey Mouse is around, but he's flying like it's all superheroes. Just even silly things. They're superheroes. And then I get this. I said this to Laura. I said, oh, Laura, turn it back. That's Andy Griffin show. She said, what's that? Did not know about Barney. She knew Barney is, again, because a different age group, but it still could be if you lived in different parts of the city, or, you might even talk about movies. Oh, my favorite movie is this. She's never seen it. And it could be the same age because she just didn't grow up listening to those. Or some people have never been out of the state. Oh, I tell you what, I love going to the beach. You've been to the beach? I always wanted to go to the beach. You never been to the beach? See, so just the little things like that. And he expects no less from any mates, whether it's your first marriage, second, or third. He expects us, of course, all to be godly. Now, here are some areas in the blended marriage that you're going to have to consider. You're going to have to know your relationship with your mate's children. And that means you're a step-parent. You're not the parent. And that even legally, there's certain things you can't do as a parent, a step-parent. You just can't do them. Laws of the land require it. You can't refuse your child. You say, what about if your child is going to go home for the weekend with their other mate, with the ex-daddy, their daddy, and so forth, and he won't take them to church? You can't say, well, my kids go to church. No, I'm sorry. The laws of the land say she's got to go to that house, and if he doesn't take her to church, that's too bad. Well, they might have alcohol there. I'm not letting them go where there's alcohol. You got no say. Now the mother can say, look, to her ex-husband, don't be doing that kind of stuff, But as a step-parent, you're kind of like low in the totem pole. And that's you got to get used to that. They're not your children in that sense. And you could eventually adopt them or something, but they're not your children. And you didn't raise them a certain way. They're your stepchildren. They have certain things that they do, they've done for years, and if you come in and try to change them right away, you're in trouble. They're not going to like you. Here's what happened to me. When the first time, we got married in June, so August time is time for school, and the kids, getting their lunch pails ready, and I already had 3 kids, remember? Older kids now. I got the routine for breakfast. I know how to do it. Honest, after about 1 week, everybody was yelling and screaming because I said, oh, no, don't do that. Do this. Lord, no, Lord, this is a better way to do it. And again, she said, look, you can't tell you. You've got to blend into our routine. You can't come and change the routine we've been doing for 4 or 5 years. And it was a good routine. I think mine was better, So what happened now, and I still do it, I do not get out. I don't go in the kitchen in breakfast time. I don't. I can go in there now and I won't say anything. But at first I say, no, let them do this. My way's better. But they already had a routine. Now, when you first get married, what's the routine for kids? You don't even have one. When the kid comes, now you do some things, and maybe you trial and error. They already had a routine. You can't change your kids' routines, the stepchildren. Gradually, you might. If they're doing something ungodly, of course, you could say, we don't need to watch. It's not you can't watch TV. You just can't watch a bad show. So you might try to do so. Look, let's not do that so much. It's not incredibly wet. But a step-parent, that's what you are. And you've got to understand that. And there's certain rights, even legal rights, you don't have. So you can't be real bossy. And the kids are going to watch you. If you're too bossy, they're not going to like you, even for the mama or daddy. So you got to understand that. And then you got to understand the relationship between your children and your stepchildren. You can't prefer your kids over their kids, even if their kids are not as nice as yours. Sometimes it is. This is what you'll say to your wife. Well, I wouldn't be yelling at your kids if they were like mine. Well, why didn't you ever teach them they can't do that? That could come up. So you got to be so careful. And even if the kids disobey either one of you, you can't prefer one over the other. And so you got to try. You can't give better gifts to your kids than their kids. That's something that can happen. You can't have different rules. Now, you do according to ages, of course, but you can't allow your children to do something and the stepchildren not. You can't be more lenient. And the stepchildren will easily see it. They really see it. And that's one thing they'll say. He's mean, Mommy. He doesn't let me do anything. She's mean. She won't let me do that. They'll see. She lets her kids do it, but not me. They'll see it. And so you've got to be ready from day one. You can't say, I'm going to raise them like mine, like you did yours, because they already are going to have some good routines. Now, there may be some bad things you're going to have to both correct, but you can't go in there saying, I'm going to raise them my way. So you got to talk about it maybe before you even get married, but you got to talk about it. Discipline. Anybody will tell you this, step parents, it's not a good advice to discipline your stepchildren. It's just not a good idea. You can be charged with abuse. The kids can say something. Again, even if he's not, even the kids, mine don't, but I know stories. People told me that kids used it against. Have you ever spanked this kid? Yes, I have. You see, you abused him. It's better for the parent to do it. And you work together, of course, even on any kind of discipline, because they'll just give them another reason not to like you. And then it puts a friction between you and your wife. So discipline, and you have to both be on the same page. And that's why you can't discipline my kids different than your kids to your wife. And you've got to be on the same page. And again, there's some good advice, things that are helpful. Like, for instance, I've had 3 teenagers. I know what they're doing. Laura hadn't had any teenagers. She said, I said, Laura, I promise, tomorrow, I know the boy doesn't like our daughter anymore. Tomorrow, she'll like somebody else. I don't think so. I think it's going to damage the rest of her life. I promise. I've had teenagers. They'll be over it tomorrow. But she hasn't. And so you got to try. You can give some advice. So if you're the one who's never had teenagers, listen to your mate who has. On the other hand, we just had a baby 4 years ago. I forgot what it's like. So I say, hey, something will go wrong, and maybe she has a bit of a fever or something. I say, it's okay. She'll get over it. She said, no. She'll say, no, babies having fevers is a lot worse than the teenagers. Nah, don't worry about it. But you ought to worry about it. See, so she's more advised. She's more advanced on taking care of a little baby than I am. So you both have to work together. You both have to work. And it's not that one's smarter than the other. It just one has more experience. And here's something you'll never think about, and this is probably one of the biggest things in the Brandon family. Your ex is always going to be part of your family. Your ex is always going to be there. You do not get him out of your family or her out of your family. Legal obligations, visitation. They're allowed to see their child. Unless the only way you get full custody is if, for ladies, the only way a mother would not get full custody is if she's a drug addict and in prison. That's about the only way. You're going to get visitation. Even if the husband's a terrible man, he'll get some kind of visitation. And he'll call. And in fact, divorce doesn't mean you have nothing to do with him anymore. I think my first year after my divorce, I talked to my wife more the first year after my divorce than I did the year before we divorced. You talk to them all the time. Legally, something about the kids. Did you know they're doing this? You still are kind of trying to raise your kids together, even though you're divorced. But then your ex is there all the time, and sometimes they're not very nice to your ex-mate. To your new mate, they're not nice. It makes you mad. It makes you really mad. They even tell the kids stuff about. It's interesting. They don't say anything bad about the new guy. It's the old guy. I mean, they talk about their wife, your wife or your husband. They talk about them, and that's not good. So they don't go away. And so I say that to say, I hated this guy so much. I hated her so much. I'm so glad to get divorced. You did not divorce them. Death, they're not there anymore. But divorce, they're there, and they're there all the time, and they're not there for good things. They're not there to make your life happy. So you better get ready. If you're going through divorce, you think, hey, and now, in fact, it even bothers you more because I think they do things against you that really are a lot more hurtful. They really are. They talk bad about you, to the kids and things like that. Here's something else, too, when you're divorced and remarrying, or your mate passes away, too, but it's a little less. The world will always look at you different. I'm Paul, the preacher, who's divorced and remarried. I am. Not nobody's fault. I'm not blaming the world. That's the truth. See that lady? That's Mary. She's a single parent. See Joey? He's divorced. I promise. That's how we talked about people. That's how the world talks about you. Christians try not to be so harmful, but you are. In fact, they'll say this. Hey, that's Paul. Yeah, that's his 3 kids, stepchildren, and that's his 1 child. Oh. So all 4 of them aren't his? Well, they're his, but, the 3 of them are stepchildren. Honest. You'll have that the rest of your life, even in the church, which the people don't try to be, but they are, because they've never really been taught. After I got divorced, I can't tell you the number of churches that I don't hold meetings at anymore. They canceled my meetings. Not because I don't have the right to remarry. They just don't want a divorce. Again, it's up to, I'm not saying they can't choose who they want for me. If I can't preach, don't have me. But they've told me, we don't want a divorced guy in the pulpit. So I said this to one church, to the kids on my meeting. I said, do you have any divorced members? They said, yes. I said, do they wait in the table? Yes. Do they lead in prayer? I said, yes. But we're not going to have one in the pulpit. I said, how about I preach down front? No answer. I'm not going to go there anyways, but that's what it's like. That's what it's like. And so that's okay. And if I try to apply for, where I am now, when I tried to apply, when I was, getting ready to marry Laura, but I had to live so, and another thing, legally, if you get remarried, I can only live 100 miles from Huntsville, Alabama, because he has visitation rights. So you say, well, I'm getting divorced, man. I'm going to go live in the mountains. No, you're not. I'm going to live at the ocean. No, you're not. You're going to live 100 miles. It's really 50 miles. We got it extended 100 in Alabama. 50 miles from where the father lives or the mother lives. You mean I got to stay here? That's right. I didn't know that. I know. I didn't either. So for my preaching, I have to preach North Alabama. I got to preach North Alabama. I can't preach. No, that's all right. I can't go to Florida. Church is called. I can't come to North Carolina. Hey, will you come be our preacher? Can't come. It's too far. Could you get permission? Usually if your kids are college age, you can get permission because the father's not going to, or mother's not going to see them that much anyways because they're in college and they can still go home for holidays or something and see them. But the world looks at you different. Churches look at you different. And you just got to get used to it. And I don't care, whether you preach or not. At work, you're the divorced one. And at church, you're still the divorced one. And that's just what you're going to carry with you, and that's okay. You just be a good Christian, and you're just doing what the Lord's asked you to do. And if there's an age difference, like there is with Laura and I, there's some situations that, you just got to get used to there. But let me tell you about this. Let me see this one. What next one is? I've said all that to tell you, but there are so many blessings. I'm just trying to, I try to scare people before they get married, like young people. I say, what do you want to get married for? They say, I love him. I say, well, I love lots of people. I wouldn't marry him. Oh, but he's so nice. I know nice people. I would marry him. Oh, lots of reasons. I say, well, what do you want to get married for? Yeah, I'm just trying, and again, you're just trying to make them think about what well, why do you want to get, after all that, I told you, you can't move and 50 miles away, and your ex is always going to be there, and all this, and your kids might not like you, and your new kids don't like you, and oh man, and you don't have any time with your wife. You got 6 kids running around the house. What are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to do it. No, I'll tell you why. Well, you might do it. Because there's some new and fun experiences in marriage and companionship you've never had because you didn't have them the first time. Now, I'm not suggesting you get married. God hates divorce. This is talking to the person who did all they could to keep the marriage together or their mate passed away. There are some new things that are going to come up that you never experienced. Or maybe you did a little bit and they're going to be here again. And they're even better. They're better. And you get to be a husband and a wife again because you weren't. You weren't. You were a husband maybe, but you couldn't be as good because your wife wasn't good helping you. Or you were a wife, but you weren't as good. And that's why all this, you don't have to go through any of this like we talked about in our lesson yesterday. You don't have to go through all this if you'll just stay faithful. You don't want to get divorced. God hates it, and it kills the kids, spiritually and everything. So you don't want to do it. But if one mate says no, what can you do? You got to do the best you can to your last breath. And now you're separated. Now what are you going to do? You can still find some more joy. You get to be a wife again. You get to be a parent again with someone who wants to help you. And you get to, you have children now. You got some new children. And if, like with me, I got little ones again. And so you get to help each other. The last names may not match, but the hearts all do. Remember that. The hearts all match. But the names are different. You'll experience love again. Even if your mate passed away. I'll never love again. Yes, you will. And you won't not love your ex any less. You will. And if you've had a terrible marriage and your mate's cheated on you and you felt like I'm not lovable anymore, you'll get loved again. Because this person will love you again. But that's never been God's plan. He wants you to be loved like that the first time. Financially, you'll be better off, especially for a woman. And that's not why you're going to get married. You don't want to marry a rich guy, but if you got money, that's fine with me. If he can help you, because you got to struggle. And now the kids aren't struggling. Laura, she had to move out of her apartment on a Christmas morning with her kids. Can you imagine that? That's when her lease ended. She had to find another apartment. I mean, that's sad. You just think about that. That's so sad. And another thing, too, for a single mother, the things you think about this for a single mother, that when you're a single mother or single parent, at Christmas time, you usually, if you got little kids, you don't get any presents. Who's going to buy them for you? I mean, if you don't have your mom and daddy, Laura's mom and daddy were both dead. Who's going to buy them? She's an only child. There's nobody to buy them for you. So, the reason I know that story, we know that because when we get ready to get married, for Christmas before we got married, I bought her 18 presents. Little ones. I mean, I didn't buy her 18 big ones, but I remember it was 18. And we counted them, and because she never got presents during that time. She said one time for her birthday, and I remember, and this is something we could all do. Some of the ladies at church took the kids out to Bath and Body Works or something like that, and they all got them something to give to Laura for her birthday. Because if not, she wouldn't have got anything for her birthday. Because now that's people, especially that are single parents that don't have any relatives around. So remember their birthdays because they don't get any. They don't get any. And even some people who've been married, their husbands and wives aren't nice to each other, and they don't even give them any presents. And so you have a family now that really cares for you, and wants you to do right. And it's just a good feeling. When you face any trials, like we were talking about here in the blended family, you can't control the circumstances. If your mate's unfaithful, you can't control it. They leave you, you can't control it. If your mate dies in an accident, you can't control it. But you can control your response to it. You don't have to remarry after a divorce. You don't. You don't have to remarry after a tragic accident. But I'm here to tell you, as time goes on, you're going to start feeling lonely. Remember what I said last night to people? Oh, Paul, you got it made. Oh, I can go to bed anytime I want. I sure can when you're single. But you go to bed all by yourself. You can eat anywhere you want, eat anything you want. Yeah, you can. But you eat by yourself. And it just gets to you after a while. And your friends are going to try to help you through any kind of us. I remember being invited to parties, 6 couples and me. That was a Halloween costume. I remember that. 6 couples. They're trying to make me feel good. Man, I'm depressed. And then they'll do this one. You ready? 6 couples, you and a lady. Oh, man. And I tell you what's wrong with that. I mean, that's nice. It never usually works out. For some reason, the lady, for me, the lady just wasn't a match. So now the lady feels bad. I was her first chance to get a new husband. And I didn't want her. Now she's really depressed. Nobody's going to want me, And I'm depressed. If that's all I can have a choice of, I stay single. Not that she was a bad girl. We just, couldn't make it together. But one of my best things was a friend called me. So what do you do when someone goes through this, or even in a blended family, and they're struggling? I promise, I'm telling you this. It's a lot bigger struggle. I can't even tell you how much more. Your first 5, 10 years of being married, the second time than the first time. First time is a breeze. Because there's no kids, there's no traditions, there's no discipline, there's no, they haven't come into the marriage with big expectations, or there wasn't things they got hurt on that they want you to heal. You might not even know what they need to be healed on. You just kind of learn. So it's hard. I had a friend coming one time from Florida. He said, Paul, I stopped answering the phone when I got divorced because everybody, you have to tell them the story. And I got tired of telling everybody the story. So I would screen my calls. I could, well, what happened, Paul? Some guys I pick up, but my buddy would call it. He said, I'm just listening to it. I'm not going to answer. So he says, hey, Paul, this is such and such. Hey, I heard about what's going on, Paul. I just want you to know that I'm so sorry. And me and my wife are praying for you. And I want you to I hope you have a good day today. Well, I guess you can't have a good day. You're divorced. Hope you have some fun. Well, I guess this is what he said. Hard to have fun by yourself, isn't it? Well, I'll tell you what, just have a day. That's what he said. And I kept it, and that's the only one I remember, and I played it all the time when I got depressed. And I have never seen him since. I know who he is, and I know his wife. They're down in Tampa, and I just have never run into him when I'm down there. But I played it back, and I promise, he meant well, and it was pretty good. Have a good day. Well, I guess you can't. You're divorced, buddy. Have some fun. I guess you can't by yourself. And he wasn't being smart. He was, oh, have a day then. And so I had a day. And that's what you have. You have a day, have another day, and then finally you feel like, you know what, I need to have a great day. And you will. And God tells you to keep your faith. So that's why I said to even yesterday, all the lessons, you've got to keep your faith no matter what happens. Keep your faith. If you grow in faith, your marriage will not fall apart. If you stop growing in faith, your marriage will fall apart. And if you grow in faith and your marriage falls apart, you won't leave the Lord. And if your marriage, your husband or mate dies tragically or through health, you won't leave the Lord. You've got to stay faithful. So what do? You pick yourself up. Eventually, you cheer up. And if you want to get married, but be ready what might happen. And if God sends somebody your way, be on your guard and realize it's not going to be like the first time. There's going to be, after you go on, like I've been married 10 years now, there are some highlights that weren't even in the first one. I mean, great things. And there's some other things I never would imagine that might cause a trouble, you see? So you got to be prepared for all of them. And if you're growing in faith, you just learn with each other. And this is the best slide I got. Ready? We're not step. We're not half. We're family. That's what you are. We're not a step family. That's what, We're not half. Hannah calls me daddy. The other kids don't call me daddy. And my kids call one of them Mom, one, Laura. I think one Miss Laura. They call them different, but we're still family. We're still family. And that's why when you're in a blended family, you pray. And most statistics, even our congregation has 80, and even Concord here, usually somewhere between 20, and it depends how many people are in there, 20 to 25% of your congregation is made up of blended families. Not just divorce now. We always think about divorce. It's someone passes away, dies. Someone 60 or older and marries. And then the older you get, sometimes there's not any children. It's grandchildren. When I dated a girl for a little bit down in Reno, Nevada, she was from California, and she was divorced, and her kids were old, but she had 6 grandkids. And I'd never been around any girl that had grandchildren. But she wasn't that old. She had kids. And I remember any time we wanted to go anywhere, we had grandkids. And to me, it kind of just messed my mind up, I wasn't ready for grandkids, And again, she's a good lady. It just things, you have to think about. And an age. I remember I told you the world thinks you're different. I'm at the skating rink, ice skating rink, teaching my kids. See, there's nothing. Her kids didn't know how to skate. I can skate. So I'm taking them ice skating. So we're in there, and there's a guy I'm talking to him. He's just good, good old boy, and we're talking about skating and hockey and stuff like that. I said, well, look, I got to go outside, but I got to help my little girl. She's never skated before. So I go out there. When I come back in, Laura's, about 20 minutes later, Laura's, I said, where's my man? He said, oh, he's gone back in. I said, he's a pretty good guy. She said, yeah. She said, when you left, he said, boy, your dad is such a nice guy. I'm called her dad lots of times. And then I say that, and I'll be going like this, and they'll say to me, hey, boy, your grandchild's about as cute as could be. I said, buddy, that's my girl. He says, yeah, I know, she's a good, all like grandkids or something, aren't they? I said, no, she's my girl. He goes, that's your daughter? And he'll say something like this, well, how old are you? Honest. Yeah, I'm in a blended family. I didn't ask for that, but it comes. When she got ready to get married, when we got ready to have our baby Brighton, I said, Doc, I was 64 at this time. I said, Doc, what's the oldest father you ever delivered for? Doc said, well, I think I had a daddy that was 50. I said, Doc, you just broke your world record. I want my picture on your wall, And every time I see him, he always, he'll say, how's the old guy or something. Kids with me. But that's what it's like in a blended family. If you're a little different in age or something, or you might just even years, you're going to be the father and you're going to be the mother. But just, a lot of times, Laura, they think, and Madison, who's my daughter who's 18, she'll be with Brighton, me and Madison and Brighton. And they'll say, Madison, I like your little girl. She says, that's not my little girl. Oh, who's it? That man right there. That man, The world thinks you're different, and they don't mean to be mean. But we got to pray, and remember, we're a family. So I hope the lesson's been helpful to you. It's hard to be married first time, and it's harder the second time. And you make it. You just have to say, hey, I would have made my first marriage if my wife would have said, I'm going to be a good, godly woman and try to go to heaven. I would have. I'm not saying she didn't want to go to heaven, but she didn't want to go according to what the Lord said. She didn't want it, so I had no choice. You have no choice if someone leaves you, and you got to do something about it. And the same, he doesn't want that. And so now you got someone else, and you can make it, but you both got to be extra faithful. And so don't think it's like, what did it say, jumping from the frying, what is it? Into the fire. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But if you got insulation, you're okay in the fire. You just put insulation on, and you'll be okay. Hey, anybody have any comments or questions that they might want to think that they know anything about it? Go ahead. Yes. Yeah.
And we can have a lot of the same issues you were just talking about with in-laws, different traditions, different ways of raising children, different backgrounds. And so if we keep in mind we're all a family and do what we should as Christians.
That's right. And a lot of times on those, traditions, they're not bad, they're not sinful traditions. They're just different. Some families, some families have Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve. How in the world could you do that? It's not Christmas. My mama told me, you have to have it on Christmas Day. And now you're married to someone and they do Christmas. And I've had places, they want to give the presents out Christmas Eve. No way. Santa's coming Christmas morning. It just messes your mind, you know what I mean? And they're not bad, but just like even in your first marriage, you got to do that second marriage, you got all kind of rules coming in that are new for you. And you've already practiced these other ones 25 years or something like that. And that's exactly right. And in-laws, in a blended family, in-laws can really, in mine, both my mom and daddy and Laura's mom and daddy are both dead. So we didn't have it, But it's interesting, Laura's mother heard me preach, and daddy, so that they knew me. That they knew me. My mom and dad never knew Laura. But her mom and daddy did. And when it got time to marry, here's another thing you think about. I got time to, where was I going to ask her to marry me? I never really, the first time you want something kind of romantic. Maybe it's during the sun going down or at the beach, something like that, or something romantic. Some guy's going, some wife's going to hit him and say, you weren't romantic, but usually it's some guy's. Second one, I said, it's not so much romantic, you want it to be nice. So this is what I did. I said, her daddy owned 200 acres in a farm, and that's where she was raised, and that's where she left when she got married the first time. I don't know how I came to the idea. So I got in the car one time in this little town where she lived. I was near there, so we went over there. I said, let's go by. I'm going to take a picture of your old house. She said, well, no, someone lives there. I said, no, I want to take a picture of your old house. And she said, what for? I said, no, I don't have a picture of your old house. I got a picture of my old house. I want a picture of your old house. So we got there, and we got to the road. She goes, I said, where are you going? I said, I'm going up to the parking lot. I'll go up. She goes, someone lives there. I said, we'll just tell them we're taking a picture. This is the house you built, your daddy built. We're just going to take a picture of it. It's a farmhouse. So I only could go over a little ways because she's going, don't go up there. Don't go up there. They're going to get us, something like that. I said, well, come on, get out. I said, get out here. I said, you stand there so I can take a picture of you in front of your old house just so I can keep a record of it. Honest, it was almost impossible. I got her to stand there, and I said, okay, when I got her there, I got on my knees. And I said to her something like, you left the house before, and you left your home before, and it didn't work out. I said, now we're going to leave it again, and this time it's going to work out. And so that's where I proposed to her in front of her house. I never did take a picture. I never did take a picture because she got it. Let's hurry up back in the car before they get us or something like that. But then she came. Do you remember a song called The Broken Road? Have you ever heard that song? I don't know who sang it, but I recommend it. Go online and type in Broken Road. It's about somebody. It's about a marriage not working and finding somebody. And we have a plaque. I just thought about it. I don't even know what. I wish I would have wrote it down. So it says something like, it's a broken road, but it says something like, I wish I would have met you sooner, so we could have had more memories or something longer, something like that. But it's really. But if you've never heard the song "The Broken Road," I never thought about it till right now again. We used to listen to it all the time. Honest, it's your life. If you've had some struggles, it's your life. If you listen to it, I don't know. It's a country singer sings it. It's really good. But that's right there. Anybody else have anything to say? The bottom line is, for any marriage, we talked about husbands, wives, and kids, and you got to do what the Lord says. You've got to be a God. And is it hard? It sure is. It sure is. It's not easy. And remember, it's not easy to be a parent. It's not easy to be a parent because what does it start with? Remember what I said? Labor. It starts with labor. If it's something fun, it starts with, it's going to be hard. Let's have a prayer. Father, again, we're so thankful. We're so thankful that we have you and that you can lead us. And we just pray for wisdom. Please give us wisdom to be good husbands and wives and mums and daddies. And Father, we have a chance at a second marriage sometimes for whatever reason. Help us to even have more wisdom, to be kind and loving and just try to help the children that are new to us and help our children to be helped by their new mom or daddy. Help us, Father, to always try to glorify you in whatever situation we're in, that we can keep loving you because you love us. We're so sorry, Father, that we're not the mates and the parents we should be. Help us to do better. Help us to look around and help those who are having some hard times. May we never look down on them. And no matter what situation we're in, as a spiritual family, whether we're single, divorced, young or old, black or white, whatever it might be, may we remember we're not half citizens, we're not half family, that we're all a family, and we're all in your family, and that you're loving us, and may we love each other. Thank you again for all you do for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you so much.